Hey guys, welcome to the Final Whistle podcast where we cover all the key talking points from the Premier League. There's been plenty to talk about, plenty of goals as well, and some disappointment as well, depending on what team you support or what your agenda is. And as always, I am joined by Ben Pescott. Welcome, Ben.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week of football. I think people are going to be a bit torn on how to feel. I mean, we're looking at it from a Liverpool point of view, and I think people will be a bit frustrated that Arsenal obviously picked up the points. But on the whole, it's another weekend of winning, and that's all you can really ask for from a Liverpool point of view, anyway.
Yeah, it kind of makes that game in hand against Everton that more sort of crucial. Hey, Ashik. But yeah, it does make it that bit more crucial because we're just waiting for that 9 points. But anyway, let's talk about the main guys. Bournemouth 0, Liverpool 2. I want you to talk about this one, but for me, that was like the making of a professional kind of result. Won't say the performance, the result. Just getting it done.
Yeah, and you have to do that. I mean, obviously Arsenal and Man City went there and they couldn't do that. They couldn't kind of withhold the barrage from Bournemouth. So yeah, I thought it was a really good win. And like I say, I don't think the performance was anything too spectacular, but yeah, I thought Alisson was back to his best, which is a huge boost. And then when you've got Salah up front, forward to kind of grind out results because he's gonna pop up in the right moments.
I mean, just speaking about obviously the whole situation. So we got a penalty, right? And by the law, it was a penalty because he clipped him. But I had to watch that a few times before it made sense. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, like I have to call it how it is.
Yeah, I thought at first. I thought at first it wasn't because it only showed it depends what angle you look at. From the side angle, it does just look like Gakpo has tripped over himself. But then you see the angles. Everyone was quick to put out on Twitter where he does catch him, and I'm pretty sure there's even a clip of Cook himself saying, "Yeah, it was a foul," and you
Yeah.
can see him saying that to his teammates. So yeah, it's one of those. I think it's unlucky for Bournemouth, but it is a penalty at the end of the day, and
Yeah.
you can
I
tell
think
by
that's
the players' reaction.
Yeah, that's what threw me off when I was watching it. I was like, where, like I had to go back and watch it to kind of find it. It wasn't like, oh, it's on the naked eye, you can't miss that. Yeah, definitely. I mean, more Salah being back to his best. I think that was absolutely important. This game, every game, just in general. But I felt like the attack wasn't quite happening for us, and any chance we had to get, we had to be clinical, albeit one was from the spot. But the finish for Mo Salah was exceptional. I mean, what did you make of the midfield?
I thought the midfield was good. I thought rusty to start with. I don't know whether it was because they got the day off during the week and then come back into the side. But I mean, Gravenberch quickly kind of got into the swing of things. Turns. I'm sure we've all seen the videos on Twitter of him doing the roulette turn and stuff like that. I thought Gravenberch and McAllister ended up having good games. Obviously, McAllister gets took off because of the yellow, but I thought Szoboszlai was a bit rusty. I mean, his work rate was still there as always, but his first touch was a bit poor.
Yeah, the McAllister thing, like it was a bit touch and go, and I'm not surprised that Arne Slot took him off like pretty much straight away, knowing that, hey, you know what, this one might get, and this one might actually get sent off, and it would be completely needless. But yeah, I thought Ali was really exceptional in this game. That save was huge, and it takes me back to that season where we were absolutely diabolical, and it was him that was kind of, if it wasn't for his form, we would have been a relegation side. And it was good to see him just have that match fitness and sharpness, and he worked so hard for that clean sheet. So I'm really made up for the defense in that regard. What I mean, with regards to, obviously we're on top of the league at the moment, we're 6 points clear with a game in hand. Would you say that game or that result could be like a season defining one?
Yeah, I think so because I think this was quite similar to the kind of the Nottingham Forest game where on paper you see Bournemouth and Forest and you think it can't be that important, but they are flying at the minute. And like I said before, other teams have struggled against them this season. So to come away with a win, it is huge. And it would have been sweeter if Arsenal had dropped points, but we can't be too picky in that sense.
Yeah, we agree with you regularly, and absolutely agree. We've been speaking about Bournemouth so much on this channel. They are a fun team to watch. And yeah, I'm just glad. I'm just glad that some of those chances actually hit the crossbar, and it didn't quite work out for them. Um, any other final takeaways from Liverpool before we move on?
We've got a couple of questions quickly. There's one. Do you care about the Carabao Cup?
Me, no.
I don't know. Yeah,
But
it's very
you,
mixed, isn't it? It's very mixed because on the whole, I'm not too bothered. But I feel like once you get the semi-final, then you'd be stupid not to take it seriously. Once you're that close, it'd be a shame to then just go and like give it away. So yeah, I'm kind of at this point, yeah. But if we get knocked out in the early rounds, then I'm not really bothered in the slightest.
with that regard, I do agree with you because it's literally just 2 games now. But
Yeah,
it's just a case of what are we going to do in the FA Cup? How far are we going to go in the Champions League? We've got this going on as well. It looks like, to answer the question above as well, I can't think someone wrote it about any signings for Liverpool tomorrow. I think it is Kumar Singh again. Yeah, I can't see us doing anything. And with the injuries and things as well. So it's just like, like an extra game. I mean, I'm sure they can fit it in. I'm sure they can work around it. But I just remember when Klopp went for the quadruple and we walked away with the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, right?
yeah,
So and again, I don't think we did much in the transfer window as well. So that's where I'm sat. But Ben, you're absolutely spot on. It is the semi-final. It's Spurs as well. I feel like we've got a point to prove at home, given how the nature of that goal that they scored. Like I remember you
yeah.
getting really on social media. I had to retweet you because I read it in your most angry voice.
Yeah, it really annoyed me, and I think it
Yeah.
was the whole thing of how bad Spurs have been as well. So we can't afford to not beat them. I mean, if we beat them 1-0 and we don't end up going through, then it's not the end of the world. But we can't really. I don't want to see us not beat Spurs again, especially at Anfield. But yeah, like with the cup, yeah, I do care, but like you said, there's more important things, and that's the league and the Champions League.
Yeah, if we were going to win 2 out of 4, those are 2 that I'm gunning for, and I'm
Yeah,
sure Ben is, and I'm sure all of you are. Could be in Liverpool versus Newcastle final. Could be, could be. We'll have to watch this space. We'll speak about Arsenal. Actually, you know what? Should we go to that game right now? Because this is what kind of ruined it for me. Because I thought if I wanted a draw last week, didn't I? You wanted a Man City win. Both of us didn't get our wish. Arsenal 5, Man City 1. What the bloody hell? Like, that is an absolute shellacking. That is, I'm not even being funny. I don't think I have seen Man City crumble like that to Arsenal.
no, or to anyone really. In a long time, I know they got beat off Spurs, but it was like the manner of the goals as well. They weren't like Arsenal didn't really have to work to score 5 goals.
Yeah.
I thought it was more not to take. Obviously, you have to give credit to Arsenal. I mean, beating Man City 5-1 isn't easy, but I thought City were like really, really bad. And that's probably the positive that we can take from it is that we've got Man City in a couple of weeks, and with the way they're playing, we will absolutely tear them apart.
Or watch them have a world against us. Yeah, you spoke about it being easy. I mean, I think the conceding 2 minutes into a game, like that is not a Pep Guardiola
No,
thing at all. Like at all. And Odegaard gets the goal, and then obviously I thought some of their players had an absolute shockers as well. I thought their defense was all over the shop. I also find it really bizarre. I don't know how you feel. I find it very bizarre that he keeps trading in Ortega and Edison, like keeps switching them in and out. And I feel like maybe that's disturbing the defensive rhythm a bit as well. With and I know they've got a lot of injuries, but Foden was horrendous today. I thought
yeah,
for them, I thought Declan Rice. I don't like to compliment him all that much, but I thought he completely marshaled and dominated that midfield. I just saw him at one point just sitting Kovacic down on the floor and just taking the ball and just running with it and passing it to Martinelli. But it just looked so easy for that midfield, and normally that midfield battle is normally more intense than that.
yeah. It's kind of like it's so simple to beat them at the minute. It's literally just run with the ball. They're not going to keep up with you. And I mean, there was so many things wrong with it today. I mean, Stones was awful. Foden, like you say, was awful, and Kovacic is trying to play that Rodri role. I mean, he's even tucked his shirt in to try and look like him, and he's absolutely nowhere
How
near.
you noticed that detail? I did.
Yeah, I noticed it. And I was thinking, I'm sure he didn't do that when he was at Chelsea. Like, took his shirt in. Could be wrong, but yeah, I don't know. I thought Kovacic is awful, and our midfield against that midfield, if that's the midfield, I think we'll get a lot of joy.
Yeah, obviously it's delight for Arsenal. They're still toe to toe pretty much. They're there, they're in the mix. It's not completely turned into a full drawn conclusion. And also, I think it probably meant a lot to the Arsenal fans because obviously you've just beaten Man City at home. And also, I think that they might have been really disappointed and felt quite bitter about how the Etihad fixture turned out, with that. Was it? I think it finished as a draw, and I think Arsenal felt quite begrudged by that. So it was good for them. But if you're a Man City fan, what are you thinking? Like, you've never, especially a new generation one, you've never seen this. Like, it must be so bizarre.
Yeah, well, they're fighting for top four now. That is the title gone, and that is another positive. I was kind of saying this earlier. I mean, I'd never thought Man City were back in it, but by the end of today, we're either going to build a lead on Arsenal or Man City are literally like dead in the title race, and they are now. There's no way they're going to come back into it. But with the way Forest and Bournemouth are playing, and I mean Newcastle will get onto them, but they had a big opportunity to sneak in there as well. And you're expecting Chelsea to really kick on soon after their kind of wobbles. So City really need to like book their ideas up, and at the minute they're not really showing any signs of doing that.
Yeah, my brother's friend who's a Man City fan. Obviously, I didn't watch the Man City game in the Champions League. But apparently they were really poor against Bruges as well, despite getting the win. Like the performance was not good. Like they were actually quite poor. They were just quite fortunate that Bruges were probably a little bit more worse off than what they are. But we've spoken about them a fair bit. I think that Liverpool game now against Everton is also more crucial. Which game should we cover next, Ben?
Let's go with. Since you touched on them there, we'll quickly talk about Everton because they've actually had quite an exciting game for once.
They actually did. Oh my God, they beat Leicester 4-0, but just scoring goals. I mean, they scored a real quick goal and Pickford with an assist. I mean, what do you make of them? Moyes coming back. That's 3 wins for him on the bounce. I know they've had Calvert-Lewin injured, and you and I are not his biggest fans. Let's just put it nicely. But they're scoring goals. Seem to be keeping clean sheets. They look a bit more easy on the eye to watch as well, in my opinion, which is so bizarre because I would never ever thought I'd say that about Everton.
Yeah, 100%. And you see in the likes of Lindstrom, who they signed in the summer, who wasn't getting a sniff. I mean, he was a winger for Napoli, quite highly rated, and Sean Dyche was just having none of it. He's come in, and they are playing better football. I mean, Njai, we've spoke about him over recent weeks.
Yeah, I think
Moyes is just taking him to a whole nother level because he's given him kind of that freedom to do what he can do, and it kind of the way he's playing for Everton at the minute reminds me of the way Moyes got the best out of Lingard at West Ham. That's the kind of role that he's playing, and he kind of gives us that vibe. And yeah, he's kind of brought back the not maybe feel good factor because it's still not where they want to be, but with the situation off the pitch and then having to watch Dyche ball every week, it just was a complete compilation of misery. Whereas now he's kind of, it's something to kind of look forward to, and that derby game in a couple of weeks is absolutely huge.
It is huge. It's massive, and I feel like it might be a bit more if Everton continue like this, it might be a bit more open because I feel like Everton sometimes really frustrate the crap out of me, and they're quite a horrible team to watch and play against.
I mean, they're normally the last team that we cover, aren't they? So for them to be this early on and us talking about them, I mean, we'll give them credit where it's due, but hopefully their run doesn't last too long.
No, it doesn't. So we've got a comment here by Abdul Rahim. Hi guys, how you doing? We're good. Hope you're well. Nottingham Forest 7, Brighton 0. Obviously wants to talk about that. Was an exciting one for him. We've already spoke about Liverpool and the City Arsenal game. So you know what? Let's talk about Nottingham Forest. They got absolutely hammered last weekend, and here they are now 7-0 against Brighton. That is embarrassing. A hat trick of assists, a hat trick for Chris Wood. Brighton just completely off the boil. I mean, I thought that'd be a little bit closer, and I thought Brighton might have been a bit more exciting this season with this new manager. And it goes, What made me laugh was his post-match comments. He said, "That is the biggest loss I've faced in my career." I'm like, "You're 12. You're
Yeah,
gonna get more." Like, it's not
yeah,
like a big, you know, like it's not like you've had a massive career. Isn't he something like 31 or 32 or
yeah,
something?
yeah.
It's
Yes,
just,
most of the players are older than him.
yeah.
But I don't know. It's weird because they started the season really well, and they looked really like the style of football was there. But I think they are suffering with a few injuries because I don't know if you saw the lineup, but they had one midfielder playing, and that was Hinshelwood, who normally plays fullback for them anyway.
Yep, and he was holding the entire.
Yeah,
He had a big lot of ground cover as well. I also feel like you said they started off really well, and again, maybe he's like, I don't know, fallen to his own words, because I think he famously said we want to upset the establishment.
yeah,
And like basically like mix things up and create a few upsets, which they did at the beginning of the season. They got them points against Arsenal and they beat Man United. But yeah, I think that is an absolute and embarrassing result and performance. But Forest, what a way to bounce back, though. Credit to them. I think top four looks really, really, really promising for
yeah.
them to continue like this.
Yeah, I mean, after last week, I think a lot of people thought this is the start of them kind of hitting that wall. But to respond with a 7-0 win is is absolutely bonkers. And Chris Wood's getting a lot of praise, and rightly so. But I thought Alanga was absolutely sensational as well.
Gibbs White too, I thought.
Yeah,
Yeah, they've got
yeah.
some really good players.
Milner is older than the Brighton head coach. That is mental, isn't it?
It's madness. Can you imagine taking orders from? I think he's older than Welbeck as well. Can you imagine taking orders as a man, someone who's? It must be so weird. Like it must
It
be such
must
a
be.
weird power dynamic.
Yeah, I can't think of many times that's happened in
Mm.
kind of like the top tiers of football. I think Nagelsmann had that in Germany where he was younger than some of the players,
Yes, he
but
was. Yeah, yeah.
obviously you've got to back it up, and they're not doing it at the minute.
Mind you, in Germany, they're all practically toddlers, aren't they? Like
Yeah,
literally, you see that them players have had a career for like 3 decades. It's because they've just been thrusted into things at the age of like 16 or 17. So yeah, I thought a fantastic result for Forest. Where to next?
we'll do our Ipswich talk.
I'm heartbroken. I'm so heartbroken. I can't believe they lost that game in the manner in which they did, right at the end as well. What to me now, I feel like I had hope about Ipswich. I do still think Southampton will go down despite them scoring 2 goals and winning. I mean,
Yeah,
I had some hope for Ipswich, and I think it's pretty much dying and gone now.
I think this weekend on the whole is kind of not confirmed because obviously there's a lot of football still to be played, but the three teams who came up are just nowhere near where they need to be. And at home to Southampton, they've only got 6 points in, I think it was 23 games. I think it was one win in 23 games as well. You've got to beat them, and to lose, especially in the manner that they did, I feel like that's a result that can really kind of kill the mindset and the confidence in them as well. So I don't know. It's going to be hard to bounce back, but we saw with Leicester and obviously with Wolves winning and Everton winning and Palace. Yeah, it's not looking good for the three promoted teams at all.
It's not, no. And I think for me, like we talk about title deciders, but that one must have been so huge at the bottom of the table as well. And, for them to kind of just squander it like that as well. Yeah, I'm gutted for Ipswich. But that one finished Ipswich 1, Southampton 2. And again, them at home not just being overly great, which is a bit of a concern. You're speaking about the relegation scrap. So let's go there. Wolves 2, Villa 0. Talk to me about this one, because I thought it was quite fascinating.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. It's a great win for Wolves, and they deserved it. I thought they had the better chances. It's just this whole Villa after playing in Europe, they just can't seem to do it, and it's a shame. But losing Duran and I mean, obviously Rashford looks like he's going. It's going to be interesting to see how they do in the second half of the season. But yeah, it's a huge win for Wolves though.
It is. It's a massive win. And when I was watching that, Ben, obviously they went 1-0 up. Bellegarde scored. There were some big chances by Guedes, and I think Cunha had a chance as well. And I was like, oh God, these big chances are going to bite you in the backside. And yeah, you're absolutely spot on, because at the end, I think Cunha just had that individual moments of brilliance, which I think has been dragging them over. And obviously from that result now, they're out of the, the bottom three, shall we say. I don't know if you caught up with this, but I heard Unai Emery's comments on Match of the Day, and he was asked about what you mentioned, them being diabolical straight after a Champions League game. And his response, I found really, I mean, like, I don't know, like, let me know what you think. He goes, "We're not Liverpool." I'm paraphrasing him.
Yeah.
"We're not Liverpool. We're not Man City." No mention of his former club, Arsenal. I mean, is he being a bit salty there? Like.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But the interesting thing is they've spent a lot of money to build that squad. People kind of forget this because they're not one of the so-called big six, but they have spent a lot of money to kind of build that squad. I think they'll be disappointed with how they've managed it. Yes, I mean we all kind of assumed that they would struggle a little bit, but I mean the record that they have after the Champions League games it's pretty mental. And I mean teams like Wolves, they are simply better than. I know they had a couple of injuries. I think Kamara had to drop back to centre back, I think, and he kind of looked a bit shaky. And they had a young lad called Bagard, I think he's called Bagard, in like the whole of midfield role. He's quite promising, but shouldn't really be starting Premier League games just yet. So I think they have got a few injuries, but I don't know. It'll be frustrating for them.
It will be frustrating for them. Right, let's move on to the final Saturday game. Newcastle 1, Fulham 2. A game of two halves. Literally, like.
Honestly, I can't put my finger on Newcastle at the minute. Obviously, they went on I think it was 7-game winning streak, and then obviously got smashed at home to Bournemouth, and then they had the perfect kind of fixture of going away to Southampton after that, and they won that, and then it's just a massive kick in the teeth to kind of to lose yesterday. And I don't know, I find it so weird. I don't know whether it's. I mean, there probably is a logical reason behind it, but I mean, they're two like key players, are Gordon and Isak, and they're both kind of their forms kind of work together. They're either both playing really well or they're both really poor, and it's weird because then I mean they're relying on Murphy a lot of the time to score goals and assists, which is mental in 2025.
It is a bit mad. I mean, great result for Fulham as well, because obviously we were doing our show last week and they were playing Man United, and I think we saved ourselves the trouble of covering one of the most boring games of football ever. Like, I just had to go there. It was just horrendous. But we did enjoy last Sunday's football fixtures anyway. Like, we agreed on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Newcastle would have been in the top 4 if they won that game. Am I right?
I think so, yeah. I'll quickly check, but I can't imagine why not with the results going the way they have.
I feel like there's been a lot of slipped opportunities.
Yeah, they would have been on 44 points, would have been 3 points clear of Man City. There would only be 3 points off Nottingham Forest and only 6 points off Arsenal if they'd won yesterday.
This is what I mean. Like, things are just falling apart in random ways. Right, Ben, I think we have 2 games left. So which one do you want to cover next?
It's a 2 Sunday games left, isn't it? The 2 games from earlier today. I wonder which one we should pick. We'll go with United.
Oh, you know what? It is the theatre of nightmares at the moment. I have no idea what's going on. It's horrendous. Like, it's just, they obviously wasn't live. The game wasn't live. There's no consistency. There's no cohesion. Great result for Palace, by the way, because obviously they lost over the last weekend, and for them to bounce back like that, Mateta is probably one of their informed players right now. But Man United, I have no idea what's going on with them. And again, I don't know what I would do if I was a fan from either one of those Manchester clubs.
I saw a stat last week, and obviously it happened again this week. League game on the bounce that they've conceded first in. And obviously we know quite a bit about conceding first, but we thankfully have the quality to turn it around a lot of the time. Whereas they don't have the quality, they don't really have the attitude. And I mean, beating Fulham last week was a huge result. And then to go back to where today's performance, it must be so frustrating. And I was looking at the table earlier. I mean, there's 10 minutes of football that completely saved their season. I mean, you look at the last few minutes against Man City where Ahmad saves them, and the game against Southampton. If Ahmad doesn't pull off them heroics, I think they're only about 4 points off the relegation zone. It's
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me. And the play that you've highlighted there as well has probably been their bright spark of the entire season. He's just individually doing what he can for them. But yeah, I think United fans will be absolutely disappointed with that. But Palace, obviously had a little setback last weekend. Come back strong this weekend. I feel like they're sort of really clicking into gears. They've got some really good players, so fantastic result for them. Let's cover the last one, Ben. I think it's a bit of a shocker. Brentford losing at home 2-0 to Spurs, and Spurs winning a game of football.
It was so boring. I don't know if you watched it live, but when I realized,
yeah,
when I realized that was the game on telly, I was like, oh, that's going to be a good game. Brentford Spurs. Honestly, it was a tough watch, but it's a huge win for Spurs, and a clean sheet is it's like winning the World Cup for them at the minute. So yeah, it's a shock. I thought Brentford would have won, but I don't know what's going on with Brentford. I don't know whether I felt like everything was clicking for them at one point in the season when everything he was kind of touching was turned to gold, and today just wasn't one of those days, and they got punished. But I'll tell you who I thought was rubbish for Tottenham is Richarlison again. So bad.
Yeah, he's not overly great, and obviously we have history with him as well. But yeah, I don't think he's anything to write home about. I think with Brentford, I feel like they're going a bit stale. I don't know, like I don't feel like they've cracked on. They've not pushed on. They've not, they've not excelled or progressed. And you're right, they had that moment where they were playing with those players clicked really well, and they were on some form, and it just feels like they've just gone a bit. I don't know. Do you think sometimes the objective is just safety, and then you kind of get into this mindset, and you're not really progressing or achieving much? Because I think teams like Brentford should be looking at teams like Bournemouth. I can't really talk about the investment or how much money they get, but looking at those kind of teams and seeing them, and Fulham as well, like really pushing, trying to get into Europe, and it's kind of like hope, if you know what I mean. Back in the day, remember when it was always a top four with the top four, and these teams made Europa, and the relegation was a bit of a scrap. But now I feel like we've got Aston Villa in the Champions League now. We've had Newcastle in the past, albeit they had a lot of financial injections, but it was in Brighton in the Europa League. Things are kind of being mixed up a little.
Yeah, I do get what you mean, and I think they'll be disappointed that with some of the performances of the likes of Villa and City above them, that they haven't kind of made the jump that Bournemouth have, for example. But I was just looking there, I didn't realise they've only won 2 out of the last 12 games. Yeah. And obviously that includes a defeat at Plymouth, who are like comfortably the worst team in the Championship as well in the FA Cup. So I don't know, that like they're not getting kind of smashed in any of the games, and they've had a tough run. Obviously, they played us that they drew with City in that run. They got beat off Arsenal, and obviously today against Tottenham. And they have got a few injuries, but the only wins are Palace and Southampton in the last 12, and that needs to change very quickly.
It does. And speaking of Spurs, they've moved to 14th now, ahead of West Ham, who do play Chelsea on Monday. Any final takeaways from this game week, or are you good?
Actually, what was your thoughts on Lewis Skelly doing the Haaland celebration, and obviously Gabriel giving it to Haaland? Do you think it's fair game, or do you think it's a bit cringy?
I think it happened to Haaland at Dortmund, didn't he, when he did it, and the PSG dressing room decided to take absolute mick out of, like, he was a kid, weren't he? And it was a bit.
Yeah, he's only about 18 or 19.
Yeah, I think it becomes unsavory when the player is world class. Yeah. I won't do it personally. I won't do it, period. That's just not my style. But I feel like people might find it a bit more like hilarious if it is like somebody like Lewis Skelly who's coming through and he's a young kid, he's got a bit of fight about him. I think it becomes a bit more palatable depending on how old the said player is and where he is in his career. Like when PSG did that to Haaland, that was just bad taste, in my opinion.
Yeah. I found it a bit strange, to be honest. I mean, I don't really see the need for. I mean, you're absolutely smashing them to begin with. I don't know.
Where you're
But that,
coming from as well.
like, you wouldn't see any Liverpool players doing that, and that is
No.
kind of a bit of the difference between the sides. Maybe a bit of maturity, but I don't know. I mean,
Well,
Arsenal fans will absolutely love it. So
and you need to remember as well, who is he managed by? You know, like
yeah,
the biggest cringe fest going. So yeah, there's that. But no, it was a good shout out. Actually, you know what, people, if you're listening to this, let us know your thoughts. What did you make of the celebration? I mean, I completely agree with you as well. Like I said to you before, I would not do it. That is not my
yeah,
style. So, you know, if you speak from a personal point of view, yeah, off. But because he's like a kid coming up, I guess it can be a bit, you know, passed upon. But Ben, I think we've come to the end of this show. Where can people find you on social media, and what would you like to plug?
So yeah, Ben Pescod Journal on Twitter is where you'll find all my work. There's a few articles go up about kind of Liverpool's owners and why they're not spending the money. And I also spoke to it was a football finance expert about kind of Man City's spending money in their 115 charges and stuff. So there's some interesting stuff on that. So if you haven't read that, go and give that a read.
Wonderful. Yeah, do go and follow Ben. Go and check out his work as well. Is it on AI and EPL?
Yes, yeah, on both sides, yeah.
On both sides. So yeah, do check that out. For my part, we're going to be very quiet because there's no Premier League football this weekend. It's FA Cup, so you can get a much deserved rest and a break. But guys, thank you so much for joining us live on YouTube or wherever you were following us. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening, and take care. And we'll catch you on Game Week 25. Take care. See you then. Bye.